Hi there, it's Marita with Harmonic Wholeness, author of Living with Grace, a story of love and healing, leaving paw prints on the heart. Welcome to another episode as I take you through the book, Living with Grace. So today we're going to talk about traumatic beginnings from that chapter in this book. Sometimes we are so wrapped up in ourselves, we forget that the other person needs a kind word, a moment of attention, or to be included, or maybe all three. Rough Start Rescue had what I call a rigorous application process which included an in-home interview. The volunteer wanted to see my house and meet me in my environment. One of the questions she asked was, "Where will the cat sleep?" I thought to myself that it was an odd and curious question. I remember pausing for a long while, wondering if she was serious. When it appeared she was, I said, "Wherever she wants." That seemed to satisfy the volunteer, and so we moved on. Keep in mind, I really had only had one reference point with cats, and that was my cat, Ginger. She was a very regal, queen-like, and extremely well-behaved cat. It was winter, and Grace had been hit by a car and left for dead at the side of the road. A woman drove by and felt compassion. As she looked in the rearview mirror, Grace raised her head. The woman went back, picked her up, took her to a vet, and Grace eventually found herself in a foster home with Rough Start Rescue. As a result of the collision, Grace had many injuries. Ultimately, she lost an eye. She had a quirky tilt to her head, and her gait was off a bit. She suffered a brain injury, yet did not consider that a big part of her story. There was trauma, which expressed itself as distrust of humans and terror of loud noises, especially diesel trucks. It wasn't a car that hit her, it was a truck. And this was deduced from observation from an experience I had with her and verified by her behavior. And what happened was we were on my deck and a truck went by, not a truck like a semi truck, but a passenger truck, but with a diesel. Oh my God, that thing was so loud. And she was so content being on the deck in the sun. And that truck went by and she immediately bolted to the door. I thought she was going to like go right through the screen door. And that's when I figured out that she, that it had been a diesel truck that was hit, that hit her. At any rate, after the hospital and vets did what they could for her, she was in foster care to await the birth of her kittens. The name she was given by the rescue was Mama Kitty. Why? She had 4 kittens and was a surrogate mother to 3 other kittens who had lost their mother. My Grace was not a Mama Kitty. When I heard her story, I heard Grace. She felt like a Grace, and she felt like Grace. After all, it sure felt as though she had been saved by Grace, especially in her last weeks as she fully embodied the state of being of Grace. When she was told that her name was Grace, her response was, "That suits me." I don't think that we knew the profoundness of my naming her Grace and her recognizing that the name suited her. The first night Grace spent in my home, she had full reign of the house, which of course meant my bedroom. And as I was sleeping that first night, I was awakened when she jumped up on the bed, and suddenly I was very alarmed because she was using my bed as a litter box. And as you can imagine, that did not go over very well. In the middle of the night, I not only had extreme emotions, but I also had to strip the bed and do laundry, and this was our tumultuous beginning. Needless to say, we were going off on a pretty bad start here. Over the course of the next few days, it became clear that Grace she was either acting out or she'd never been trained in a litter box, which that's just weird to me, but I don't know. Here was this beautiful, traumatized cat that I knew in the core of myself that I was to spend time with, that she was to be my cat. Yet my pre-learning with cats did not entail anything to prepare me for this type of behavior. Ginger had really spoiled me. The inappropriate peeing repeatedly landed Grace in my laundry room. She did not like that small room, but it was a room that could easily be cleaned. Not that she ever did anything bad in there, heaven forbid. It was getting so bad, and I was so distraught. I was texting her former foster mama, telling her I was actually considering returning her. Even though a part of me was like, how do you return a living, breathing being, knowing the chances of rehoming a traumatized one-eyed cat who doesn't use a litter box is extremely low. That did not sit well with me either. And so I was in a quandary. Upon hearing my story, a friend of mine came over. She had such compassion for Grace, locked up all by herself in that laundry room. She went in there, she sat on the floor and just talked and waited for Grace to come out. Later, she asked me very timidly if she could bring Grace upstairs. And I said, yes, as long as we're on the deck. So there we found ourselves, two women, Grace and her kitten Arya, outside on the deck. I was confused. I was distraught, and I know Grace was too. This is when I called Kristen asking for help. Kristen's amazing holistic gift and perspective truly helped me look at the situation with compassion. She gave me a bird's eye view, and I could see more than just her undesirable behaviors. I could see more than that. I saw the trauma that caused that. That afternoon began a new journey for my family, which included now Kristen, because I needed her as an interpreter. All of this leads to the conversation about how trauma, emotional as well as physical, impacts behavior and how we may act out without even realizing it. If we do not realize we're acting out, surely we cannot expect that others realize it, right? When we understand the backstory of someone else's past, their injury or their story that then adversely triggers something within us or them, it helps us to have compassion. For example, if I am acting out and I realize it is because of something that's happened in the past, then I can have more compassion for myself and step away from judgment. And the same holds true when interacting with other people or other animals. There's always a backstory. If we're allowed to peek inside that story, something unleashes in the heart. That something is compassion, grace, understanding, acceptance. That is our goal, to accept, to understand, to have grace and compassion for others and animals with whom we are in relationship. Toward the end of Grace's life, when she was so sick, I could not fathom the idea of not having her by my side. And I was brave, and I brought her into the bedroom. And one morning toward the end of her life, as she jumped off the bed, she lost control of her bladder. This time, though, I had compassion. I had understanding. I could give Grace grace. It's important that we offer grace to others, isn't it? So, have you ever felt that no one's heard you? I know what your answer is. You can't but not have ever felt unheard, invisible. Have you ever felt slighted or excluded? Oh, one of my biggest pet peeves is exclusion. That's a real tender point for me. It may not be easy, but I encourage you to voice it to those that matter and those that will listen. Have you ignored someone that desperately just wanted to be seen and heard and included, offer grace. We all need each other, and it begins with you. It begins with you. Where in your life can you offer grace, and where in your life do you need it? One speaks of giving, and the other speaks of receiving. It's a cycle. Life is not meant to just give, because then we get depleted, and it's not meant to just take, because the person that you're taking from gets depleted. It needs to be a cycle. It needs to be a cycle. So where in your life do you need grace? Where in your life do you need to be included? What is it that you need today? What do you need in order to make today better, to make tomorrow better, to make the week better? I invite you to click the link below and consider scheduling a time for a Journey to Grace conversation to explore how we might work together. That's it. That's the message for today. The underlying message always is grace. So I wish you a day of grace, and I look forward to our next episode. Bye-bye.